Welcome back to Tarot Urban Myths. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and give this episode a like. It really does help us out. Okay, so this time we're tackling a pretty creaty topic, one that's been whispered about for centuries and, even made a resurgence with that recent eclipse. We're talking about the idea that looking into a mirror during an eclipse can invite something sinister into your life.
Yeah, it's amazing how these beliefs kind of stick around, Even with all our modern science and technology, it's like this primal fear. We're still afraid of the unknown. Like certain events can disrupt things, open doorways to places we don't really understand.
And this isn't just some old wives' tale. We actually got a firsthand account from one of our listeners, someone who experienced something truly terrifying during that total solar eclipse back in 1991, down in Mexico. His story is incredibly detailed. And the way this event has stuck with him all these years later is really unsettling.
What gets me is how this account ties into all those broader cultural beliefs about mirrors. I mean, think about it. In so many cultures, mirrors are seen as more than just reflective surfaces. They're like portals or thresholds between worlds, the physical and the spiritual. It's like the eclipse itself makes that power stronger, creates a vulnerability, a thin veil between us and something else.
And, his story takes place during a time when there was a lot of anxiety surrounding the eclipse. He talks about this palpable fear, but also excitement across the country. The media was in a frenzy, and it just amplified that sense of foreboding. Even the little precautions people were taking seem kind of harmless at first, but they point to a deeper unease about eclipses and what they could do, like pinning safety pins on pregnant women.
Yeah, those practices, people often dismiss them as superstition, but they reveal something deeper, I think, like a human need to control the unpredictable. The eclipse, with its sudden darkness and disruption, it represents a loss of control, triggers that primal fear response.
Our listener was only 7 years old at the time. He was at home with his mother, his grandmother, and his aunt, who was pregnant. They were all glued to the TV watching the eclipse coverage. You can just imagine the anticipation building with each passing moment. But he kept feeling drawn to his grandmother's bedroom door. It was left ajar, and he could see the reflection of a full-length mirror from the hallway. Even before anything happened, he describes this overwhelming sense of unease.
That detail about the mirror is interesting. Even before the entity shows up, the mirror is highlighted almost like foreshadowing. Like it sets the stage for this intrusion, this crossing of boundaries. Makes you wonder, did the mirror attract this being somehow? Or was it just a conduit, a way for it to manifest?
And then total darkness fell. The TV showed that iconic image, the ring of light around the moon, and for a moment everyone was captivated. But when he looked back towards the bedroom standing in the reflection of the mirror, he saw it. A terrifying figure. A bald, naked man with extremely pale skin and this strange symbol etched on his forehead.
The fact that this being only appears in the mirror, that's immediately strange. Is it trapped there? Is it trying to break through? Or is the mirror like a barrier keeping it at bay?
He started screaming, pointing at the mirror. His aunt thought someone had broken in. She rushed over, but there was no one there. And then his grandmother saw it. Her face just drained of all color, and she whispered, "It's in the mirror."
Chilling moment. Plays on that classic horror trope, the entity in the reflection.
And this was just some passive observer. The being in the mirror began to smile, this menacing grin spreading across its pale face.
And then it started pounding on the mirror, desperate to get through. But there was no sound, just this silent, frantic struggle.
That silence is what's most unsettling. It's like it breaks all our expectations.
Yeah.
Highlights the fact that this being is otherworldly, not bound by the laws of physics as we know them, and that makes it even more terrifying.
His grandmother realized the danger and immediately started to pray, urging the others to join her. They were all terrified, huddled together, desperate for protection. That sense of helplessness, of being trapped with no way to fight back, it taps into another primal fear. The fear of the unknown and uncontrollable, a fear that's been with us since the beginning, since our earliest ancestors faced predators and natural disasters.
His grandmother, in a moment of clarity, grabbed our listener and pulled everyone into the kitchen, locked the door behind them. They huddled together at the sound of their prayers, filling that small space. It was a desperate attempt to create a safe haven, to shut out that terrifying presence in the other room.
That retreat into a confined space creates a feeling of claustrophobia, heightens the tension. They've gone from passive observers to hunted prey, trapped in a nightmare they can't wake up from. It makes you wonder, how do you defend yourself against something that defies the laws of nature?
You'd think they'd be safe in the kitchen, right? But then our listener noticed something in the circular glass window of the kitchen door. There it was again, faint but unmistakable. The silhouette of the being, its menacing grin and the glowing symbol on its forehead, it was relentless, seeking any way to reach them.
That detail is chilling because it suggests that this being isn't just confined to the mirror. It has a presence and awareness that extends beyond that reflective surface. It's seeking them out, almost as if it's drawn to their terror. Raises the question, is this entity bound to a specific location? Or is it something more insidious, something that can follow you? Almost like it's feeding off their fear, their desperation, making it stronger. That idea of fear as fuel for these evil things. It's a common theme in folklore and mythology, isn't it? Taps into our deepest anxieties, the idea that our own emotions can make us vulnerable to unseen forces.
As the eclipse started to recede, light slowly returned to the world. The image of the being faded from the kitchen door, leaving behind this feeling of relief, but also a lingering fear. They waited, huddled together until the eclipse had completely passed, too terrified to even breathe, let alone leave the kitchen.
That slow return of light, it must have been both a blessing and a curse. The immediate danger was gone, but they knew what was lurking in the darkness. The experience would change how they saw the world forever, leaving them wondering when or if it might return.
And the aftermath of this encounter was just as unsettling. A few days later, his aunt tragically lost her baby. While doctors said it was due to complications, the family couldn't shake the belief that the being was somehow responsible. The weight of that guilt, the fear that they had invited this tragedy into their lives. It's unimaginable.
It makes you think about the connection between belief psychology and physical well-being. While there's no scientific evidence that eclipses can cause miscarriages, the family's deep fear, their conviction that this entity was to blame. It could have manifested in physical ways. It underscores that powerful connection between mind and body, how our beliefs can shape our reality.
It's a heartbreaking reminder of the impact that fear and trauma can have on our lives. To cope with the tragedy, the aunt and her husband eventually moved away, seeking a fresh start, a place where the memories wouldn't haunt them.
Their decision to relocate says a lot about how powerful this experience was. It wasn't just a bad dream. It left a scar on their minds, a wound that wouldn't heal. It raises the question, how do you escape a trauma that's so deeply ingrained, so interwoven with your perception of reality?
Our listener and his mother stayed in the apartment with his grandmother until she passed away. He now lives there alone, carrying the weight of this experience and the terrifying knowledge that eclipses are a recurring phenomenon.
To live with that constant fear, the anticipation of another eclipse, another potential encounter, it's a heavy burden. It speaks to the power of these events to shake our sense of safety and security, to remind us that we are in many ways still at the mercy of forces beyond our control.
He's taken drastic measures to protect himself. He's removed all the mirrors from his home and covered the glass on the kitchen door. He even considered leaving the apartment entirely during the recent eclipse.
Those actions, while they seem extreme, are a testament to the depth of his fear. He's trying to regain a sense of control, to create a barrier between himself and the unknown. But it also highlights a key question: is he truly safe? Is this entity bound to a specific location? Or is it something more insidious, something that can follow him?
And here's the most disturbing part of his story. He doesn't believe this being was unique to his home or his family. He believes it could appear to anyone who dares to look into a mirror during an eclipse. It's a chilling thought. The idea that this entity might be lurking out there waiting for its next opportunity.
That statement takes this from a personal experience to a universal warning. It taps into a primal fear that's echoed in countless myths and legends. The idea that there are things beyond our comprehension lurking just beyond the veil of reality, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves.
It certainly makes you think twice about dismissing those old superstitions, doesn't it? Maybe there's more to these beliefs than we care to admit. Maybe, just maybe, there's a reason why cultures around the world have warned against looking into mirrors during an eclipse for centuries.
It's a sobering thought. This story reminds us that despite our technological advancements, despite our understanding of the universe, there are still mysteries we can't explain, forces we don't fully comprehend. And perhaps sometimes it's wiser to heed the warnings of the past, to acknowledge that there are limits to our knowledge, and to tread carefully in the face of the unknown.
Yeah, it really does make you wonder. Maybe we shouldn't be so quick to dismiss, the wisdom of those who came before us.
I agree. This story is a powerful reminder that our ancestors, despite their lack of scientific understanding, they often had this deep awareness of the natural world and its dangers. Their stories, their myths, their superstitions. They weren't just fanciful tales. They were a way of encoding knowledge, of warning future generations about the things that lurked in the shadows.
Makes those eclipse-watching events even more interesting, doesn't it? Knowing that beneath all the scientific observation, there might be this current of primal fear, this recognition of something older and more mysterious at play.
Absolutely. It adds a whole new layer to how we understand these events. They're not just scientific phenomena, they're cultural touchstones woven into human history and belief. They evoke a sense of wonder, but also caution, like a reminder that there are forces at work in the universe that we may never fully understand.
So as we move forward, as we witness future eclipses, maybe we should do so with a sense of reverence, recognizing the power they hold both scientifically and culturally.
And maybe with a healthy dose of respect for the unknown. After all, it's often in those spaces where our understanding fails us, where our scientific explanations fall short, that the most compelling mysteries reside.
This story has definitely given me a lot to think about, and I'm sure it sparked some questions for you, our listeners. Have you ever experienced anything strange or unsettling during an eclipse? Or maybe you've heard stories passed down through your family that touch on these themes. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.
And if you're new to terror and urban myths, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. It helps us continue to bring you these fascinating and thought-provoking stories.
And don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode, where we'll delve into another corner of the unknown. Until then, stay curious, keep an open mind, and maybe, just maybe, keep an eye on those mirrors the next time an eclipse darkens the sky. You never know what might be looking back.